There are several ways that you can transfer money between your bank accounts, and it's important that these transactions be recorded correctly in your accounting system. In this tutorial, we'll walk through 3 example transfers to show you how it's done in Sage ERP Accpac. The examples will involve a wire transfer between accounts in separate banks, a transfer between accounts at the same bank, and finally, a transfer between separate banks by writing a check and making a physical deposit. So now let's jump right in and take a look. Before we get into the examples, let's first review our banks and a critical bank account setup option. To look at our banks, we'll go to Common Services, Bank Services, Banks. Hitting the Finder shows us all of our banks. Importantly, for our 3 demonstration examples, we have accounts set up here at several different banks, and we also have a bank, City Commercial, where we have 2 accounts, a checking and a money market account. Let's select the City Commercial checking account, and note that when you're setting up banks, this is where you enter the transit and bank account numbers. Let's close the window, and now let's look at an important setup option. We'll go to Bank Setup, Options, and we'll open the Processing tab. In the Transaction Options section, a default GL account must be specified before bank services will behave properly. In this case, account 6110, our bank charges and errors account, has already been selected. And now we'll close the window. So now let's get started with our first example, which will be a wire transfer between 2 separate banks. We'll begin by going to Bank Transactions, Bank Transfers. The date defaults to the current day, and you should make sure it's posting to the right period. Let's enter a description, Wire Transfer to cover payroll. Next, we'll select the From and To bank accounts. Starting with From, we'll hit the Finder and select the Seattle-Tacoma bank account. And for the Transfer To account, we'll select the Second National Bank, whose code is PR Bank, since this is the account we use for our payroll. Moving to the transfer amount, we'll enter $1,000. Notice that when we tab out of this field, the $1,000 automatically populates the deposit amount field. Most wire transfers incur a service charge, and it's very easy to add one here. Let's assume that the charge will be $10, so we'll apply $10 against the bank charges account. So to summarize, $1,010 will come out of Seattle-Tacoma Bank, and $10 will go against an expense, and the balance will go into our payroll account at the Second National Bank. It's as simple as that, and now we'll hit Post, and the transfer takes place. And the message confirms the posting, and we'll close the pop-up and the transfer window. Now let's take a quick look at our general ledger to verify that the transaction in fact took place. To do this, we'll go to General Ledger, GL Transactions, Batch List. Let's uncheck the box here to show only unposted batches. And now we'll double-click to open the batch. And there's the $10 charge against our expense account, and we've taken $1,010 out of the Seattle-Tacoma bank account and moved $1,000 into the Second National Bank payroll account. So that's how we would be doing it if it was a transfer between separate banks. Let's now close this window and the batch list and take a look at our second example, which involves a transfer between 2 accounts at the same bank. To do this, we'll go back to Bank Transactions, Bank Transfers. So let's suppose that we've called our banker at City Commercial Bank and requested that they transfer money from a checking account to a money market account at their bank. So for Transfer From, we would select the City Commercial Bank checking account, and for Transfer To, we would select the City Commercial Bank money market account. So this type of transfer is quite simple in Sage Accpac, and we don't need to run through the entire process since from this point, it follows the same steps as the previous example. Now let's look at the final example, where we'll transfer money between 2 accounts in 2 separate banks by writing a check and depositing it in the other bank. To do this, we'll first write the check by going to Accounts Payable, Accounts Payable Transactions, Payment Batch List. Here we're going to write a manual check to transfer this money. So we'll click New, and for a description, we'll type in Funds Transfer. We'll leave the default bank, and for transaction type, let's select Miscellaneous Payment. For Remit To, we'll enter our company name, Sample Company, Inc. The payment code should be check. Now moving down to the grid, here's the key step. We'll need to transfer this money into a special account that we're using as a clearing account. So in the GL account field, we'll enter 1099, which is our bank transfer clearing account. And in the amount field, we'll enter the transfer amount, which is $1,000. Now we'll click Add, and to physically write the check, we'll return to the entry by hitting the back arrow. And now we'll hit the Print Check button, and here we'll click Print again, and then OK to confirm the printer settings, and now our check begins to print on our printer. And yes, our check did print successfully. So let's close these windows, and now we'll see how we're going to record the deposit. To do this, we'll go to Accounts Receivable, AR Transactions, Receipt Batch List, and we'll do a quick miscellaneous receipt. So we'll click New, and here we'll enter a description, Check Deposited from CCB, which is the bank code for City Commercial Bank. Moving to transaction type, this will be a miscellaneous receipt. For the payer, we'll enter our company name, Sample Company, Inc. And for invoice number, let's enter today's date, 2020-06-30, since there obviously is no invoice for this type of transaction. For the receipt amount, we'll enter $1,000. Now we'll move down to the grid, and again, the clearing account is the key here, which we'll enter in the GL account field, and you may recall that its account number is 1099. This will deposit the funds back into the clearing account, and we'll enter $1,000 as the amount. So now we'll click Add to save the transaction. So to summarize, what we've done is write the check where we took money out of one bank account and put it into the clearing account. Now we're taking it out of the clearing account and putting it in the other bank. So that's how you would handle transferring money if you actually wrote the check out of your payables account and deposited it in one of your other banks. We follow this process to ensure that the money flows through properly into bank services so that when we do our bank reconciliations, all of the transactions are there. And that completes our tutorial. Give us a call if you need assistance with this or any other feature in your Sage ERP Accpac system. Well, that's it for this tutorial. Bye for now.